As you come up to the western wall of the gallery, you see the wall full of Gary Blundell's woodcuts. And as you get closer to the pieces, you can get a real sense of just how much texture is within them itself. You can see that there are these lines cut out in each one of the pieces that he's then painted on top of. The patterns themselves are actually patterned off of sapsuckers, a breed of woodpecker here in North America, and how they go along the trees in the forest in early spring. When you look at the wall in its entirety, you can actually see a transition from the left to right. On the left, it's focused mainly on the actual sapsuckers themselves and the patterns that they leave on trees. But as you move towards the right, more and more he seems to be exploring these ideas of snow, and the shapes of the actual cuts themselves seem to change. You start off with these very smooth lines and kind of forms figured out. And as you move towards the end of the wall, they become a lot more geometric and a lot more straight lined. And with that, you can see the transition of what he's studying. It starts off with the patterns of the sapsuckers, but then ends with both the sapsuckers and the actual land and geometry around the pieces. For me, the individual pieces of pulse and sweep are the ones that really stand out within this wall. Pulse itself, the third from the left, has these nice long lines with a sort of bulge in center that comes out. And for me, that really brings out the idea of a form of what it's trying to depict. Meanwhile, Sweep on the very left has these nice lines that seem to go up towards the top of the plane, creating a sense of direction and kind of gazing up on something. This is just my interpretation though. What do you guys think? When you finish off with Gary's wall of woodcuts and turn to the right, you see a second wall that has all of his paintings. And again, you can kind of see a transition of different ideas that he's working through. It starts off by him still exploring the snow tones that you see at the end of the woodcut walls. But as you move on, you start to see more of his geologist background. Gary's interested in concepts of deep time, so time on a scale of geological terms instead of human terms. Less decades and single years, more as centuries, millennia, and even eons. Which I think speaks a lot to the actual show itself, since the forest is a combination of both bedrock for its soil, as well as sediment that has been carried here from glaciers. So the actual soil itself that forms the forest, of which all these works are based upon, the foundation of that was actually laid down thousands and thousands of years ago with the ends of the last glacier. And as you move on towards the end of the wall, you see Gary again just changing his themes one more time as he starts to focus on ecotones. These transition areas where two different biological communities start to meet. Compared to the earlier analytical works where you can see Gary's almost scientific background as a geologist start to peek out, here it seems almost more poetic. Our curator Lucy actually got a wonderful line out of him about how he thinks that there must be some sort of warmth emanating from these trees, which I thought was a beautiful line. And within the pieces itself, you can see that he's focusing more on these transition areas in early spring where the snow starts to melt, and it starts to melt around the base of the tree before it starts to go out to different areas. Turn into the eastern wall of the gallery. It's dominated mainly by Victoria Ward's pieces. Except for on the very left here where we have one of Gary Blundell's works. A cheeky little joke from our curator Lucy Ledenhander, because the two of them are partners, and to quote Lucy here, they are utterly in love and it is absolutely adorable.